Empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? First 6 seconds, point A to point B, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to the Morning Scoop. It's Tuesday, August 2nd. The football team reports to camp tomorrow. I can't believe we've made it. Football is here. Training camp is here. A lot of moving and shaking is going to go on over the next month during training camp. Spots will be won. Spots will be lost. A lot of competition at a lot of places on this roster. Really excited for it. And we also open up with maybe the biggest opener we've ever had in the history of Ohio State, with Notre Dame showing up to the Horseshoe in a little over a month. So this is going to be amazing. I can't wait to see it. That being said, we appreciate you guys as always. This has been a growing thing. It's been unbelievable. Comment, what player do you want to see seize a starting spot during this training camp? Is it Jack Sawyer at defensive end? Is it one of the safeties? Is it, there's a lot of competition for that third receiver spot between Emeka, Julian Fleming, Jaden Ballard, Cam Babb. There's a lot of guys out there trying to make their marks. Does G. Scott become the starting tight end, or does he mix in with Cade Stover? A lot of questions. We have a guy who is going to have some really good answers for us coming in now. I have my good friend Joe Draime. Joe is our newest hire. He's our lead beat reporter. He is an outstanding analyst, an outstanding talent, one of the hardest workers in the industry. Joe, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you today? Thank you for having me on.
Doing great, my man. So tell me a little bit, who do you see potentially breaking out early in camp? I know you did a nice article today on your projected, you threw some names out there. Talk to me a little bit about Jordan Hancock. That's the first guy on your list on BuckeyeScoop.com. It's a free article right on the front page. You guys want to read it. What do you see in Jordan Hancock? Why was he one of the guys that you're projecting to break out?
Well, he fits that mold of what they want at corner. They want a long body, a guy who can run. He has very loose hips. He's been a dude throughout the offseason. He's been great in the weight room. He's kind of emerged as one of those guys who is one of the hardest workers on the team. He's been like a sponge in that secondary room. And he's really making great strides, and I feel very strongly he's a guy that could potentially break into a role, not necessarily starting right out of the gate, but definitely playing sort of in that mold of Denzel Ward back in 2016 with Gary and Conley and Marshawn Lattimore still in front of him. But he's putting together a great foundation for a great career, and set up to be a great contributor on special teams and also to be contributing to the cornerback room.
Yeah, I think it's really important to identify who your top three corners are, because they're going to be playing a lot. I know that we're going to be a safety-driven defense, which we've said ad nauseum, or Jim Knowles has said ad nauseum. But in modern college football, teams are in three receivers probably 70% of the time now, and you need three cover guys out there. That's a great pick. Another name who is no stranger to Nevada Bucks Nuggets, a lot of our inside information intel. A guy that people really think can be productive is a guy, Mike Hall, maybe the strongest guy on the entire team. Tell me a little bit about why you like Mike Hall. A lot of people thought he'd be a three technique, but he's been playing nose, and he's a beast at nose. But tell me a little bit about Mike Hall and why he's your next projected breakout player.
Oh, because he's nasty, and he's a hard worker. He's been a weight room warrior. He's a little bit, on the smaller side, kind of in the form of a Robert Landers, who they really, really liked. And he's got kind of similar traits. He could eat blocks, and he's athletic enough to make plays. And the D tackle position has been one where, they're really trying to exhaust all their options to make sure that they find the right guy. And I really feel that Mike Hall is one of those guys who is primed to sort of seize that role.
Yeah, I think that Mike is a kid that has a real opportunity. I don't think we've gotten the production we've needed out of nose guard since Tommy Togiai took off. It all kind of started when Tommy missed the Bama game. Obviously, he's not going to make enough of a difference for us to beat Bama, but he was ultra productive the year that he played nose, and Haskell played three technique in that game. They tried to play Haskell at nose, and he looked like a fish out of water. Nose is a very, very tough position. You need maybe the toughest guy on the entire team to play it. Mike Hall is the toughest guy on the entire team. He's slightly undersized, but when you're as strong and as explosive as he is, he reminds me a lot of Ed Oliver, who played nose for Houston, when most people thought he should be the penetrating three technique. But he was really successful. Went first round, top 10, I believe, and he was the guy that was productive from day one. The second he got to campus at Houston. The next name on your list is a fellow Macedonian. I am a Massillon guy. I didn't go to play for the Tigers, but Jaden Ballard is a Massillon Tiger. Talk to me a little bit about Jaden. Obviously, Chris Olave made waves at the combine when he said that Jaden's the fastest guy on the team. And then you see you see Chris Olave run a 4.27. You see Garrett Wilson run a 4.33. That is really saying something. So, talk to me a little bit about Jaden Ballard and why you're projecting him to be one of the breakout wide receivers.
Well, that's just it. He is the fastest player on the team, and he has a unique skill set to that room where he can really run through a defense, has a pretty impressive top end speed at that 20 to 60 yard mark, which is something that guys like Devin Smith and Jamison Williams were very, very strong at. They could run through 2-man, which is something you just don't usually do. And I think Ballard's really a type that could do that and really take the top off of defenses. And really, if he just gets into the rotation, that's a scary sight for defenses to have, Marvin and then Emeka Egbuka and Jackson Smith and Jigba. Then you throw in Jaden Ballard, who's just going to run by everybody. That's a scary thought.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see because obviously the two top guys are going to play just an absolute ton with Marvin and Jackson Smith and Jigba. You put a gun to my head, I'm thinking Emeka's the number 3. He's just too talented to not be the number 3. But then you have a host of guys that are going to be battling to rotate in, and what percentage of the game do they get to play? Because they do these hockey line shifts where all 3 receivers, kind of come in and out to keep the guys fresh throughout the season. But what do we get out of Cam Babb? What do we get out of Julian Fleming? Any of these freshmen pop? Jaden. I mean, there's some serious talent, and there's a lot of mouths to feed, which it's great when you bring all these kids in, and Brian Hartline's as good at managing these kids as anyone that I've ever seen, just because these kids are all 5 stars, high 4 stars. They all want to eat, and you can only eat if you're on the field. But Brian, he does a great job of managing not just the talent, but the egos in that room. Next, we've got Reed Carrico. Reed Carrico is a kid from Ironton. Tell me a little bit of why you like Reed. He's a great athlete. He's a lot better athlete than people realize. Really can float out there when he's running in summer conditioning. I've had great reports on him. Tell me a little bit about Reed Carrico.
Well, like you said, he's very, very athletic. And being an Ironton kid, he's got that tough grit to him that I always love, and that's equally great when you're a great athlete. He can really run, and he's really, really strong too. He kind of reminds me of Pete Werner a little bit. He'll be solid against the run. He's athletic enough to play in coverage, and if he can just be sound on his assignments and seize a moment, he can contribute to this team at a position where they're really desperate for contributors this year.
Yeah, and I think Pete is one of the most underrated players in school history. He's such a great kid. Did fantastic for the Saints. I think that the schemes he played in might have handcuffed him as much as any player I've ever seen, because he's a really, really, really good linebacker. He was fantastic as a rookie in the league, and I think that if he was in the right scheme, he would have had a lot more accolades. All Big Ten, All American type player. But if you don't have the right fit, it really makes it tough to be as productive as you'd like to be. So next up, we got another corner. This is great, J.K. Johnson. J.K. is obviously a kid that super athletic, super competitive. Tell me what you like about J.K. and why you're projecting him as one of your breakouts.
Well, like you said, he's a tremendous athlete, very fast, very loose hips. Again, he's another bit of a longer type of body, which is important. And, I would say that I wouldn't say neck and neck with Jordan Hancock, but he's very, very close. Just has a few more things he's got to shore up to get right there. And, I know that the Ohio State staff is very, very excited about the new DB room talent, and they feel it's very, very gifted room for really the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what our new secondary coaches Tim Walton and Perry Eliano get out of that back end. I think that enhancing the pressure, with some of Jim Knowles' simulated pressures, along with kind of taking the chains off of some of our defensive ends and the variety of pass rush moves. I think enhancing the pressure works hand in hand with making it easier to cover, because it's impossible to cover anyone for a really long time. As good as quarterbacks and receivers are and offenses are, you have to have pressure to make it easier for these guys to get their job done. Final name is a guy that was so good in the spring game, I was worried he'd hit the portal and he'd go somewhere like Auburn and be the starting running back. Evan Pryor, again, fantastic spring games, fantastic burst. Problem is we got Trey Henderson, who's probably the best running back in the country, and then you have Mine Williams, who's an NFL draft pick type running back, like a Carlos Hyde type. What do you like about Evan Pryor? Tell me about him.
I love his skill set. He reminds me a little bit of like a Curtis Samuel type of player who was one of my favorites growing up. And he has a phenomenal burst, great vision. He's versatile because he can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's athletic enough to make things happen with the ball in his hand. And when you have, guys like, Travion Henderson, Mayan Williams, it makes it tough for the third guy to get worked in. But I really think that they should be studying how Georgia employed 3 running backs in their national title run, because there's absolutely a place for Evan Pryor in this offense. And he's one of those guys where if he has the ball, he has a chance to take it the distance every single time.
Yeah, and I think that the platooning system is going to get more and more prevalent in college football, just as it is in the NFL, as they continue to quote unquote enhance the season and make the season longer with, a conference title game, a 3 or 4 round playoff. Like, you can't just give the one guy the ball 350 times like you used to back in the day. I think that there's going to be more 1A, 1B, and maybe even 1C type-ish running back rotations. And I think that helps recruiting. I think that, what Alabama would sell to kids about, not just killing you with a workload and having 2-3 backs rotate in and all elite. I mean, it helped. Josh Jacobs was a, rotational back who had a great skill set. He went first round to the Raiders. I think that there's something to having 3 good backs, and you got to feed them or else they're going to leave. I mean, that's like the biggest balancing act with the portal now, is being able to keep these kids happy, that could be starting at a lesser program and, making a name for themselves and getting drafted. Because you don't have to go to Alabama to get drafted as running back. I mean, you could be productive at a school and put up big numbers and go, in the first few rounds, and that's way better than just sitting there watching. Indiana had some really good running backs that got drafted: Jordan Howard, Tevin Coleman, and they didn't win any national championship rings, but Briante Dunn and those type of guys did. And, but Briante never got to play, so he never got to show his skill set, and he never made any sort of a dent in the NFL. So, Joe, one of your specialties is recruiting. And obviously, we are going through a really strange patch right now. It looks like Ty Lockwood is going to decommit and head to Bama. We lost Dijon Johnson. Talk to me a little bit about the state of Ohio State recruiting. We try to keep it positive. We got Jelani Thurman, who I think's a great player, but he might have cost us Ty Lockwood. It's been a strange stretch. What are your thoughts on what is going on inside the Woody Hayes and with Ohio State recruiting in general?
Well, I would definitely preach patience for the time being. This new, especially on the defensive side of the ball, this new staff has only had about 7 months to get these relationships to really where they need them to be. And that's pretty tough, because a lot of these guys have already been getting recruited by schools like Alabama and Georgia for the past 2 years. And for, Knowles, Eliano, and Walton to come in and win these relationships right away, that's a really big ask. So I would say the 2024 class is the one we should really be judging the staff on. But there's cause to be concerned, and I expect a lot of those things will sort of be assuaged as the year continues and you see a good defensive product on the field. And it really will just come down to, will these relationships win out? And we're doing, I would say, better than expected on the NIL front, and I expect that to improve going forward as well. So, I would very much say no need to panic yet, but it's obvious that things need to get ramped back up, and no one knows that more than the guys inside the Woody.
Yeah, it's can't be too comfortable right now the way with some of these guys that are flipping the way they are. It's been really interesting. Brock Glenn committed. We have our 2023 quarterback. I feel like we've been left at the altar by about 25 different quarterbacks. It feels like we finally got a kid out of Tennessee. Tell me about Brock Glenn. He seems like more of a placeholder than a prototype, which I hate to say that word because you never know what kid's going to come up here and show out and dominate and outwork someone. But, when you've got the kids that are going to be, battling for the starting job after CJ Stroud declares, then you've got Dylan Raiola coming right behind him. Tell me about Brock Glenn. What do you like? What does he need to work on? And what is his future with the Buckeyes?
Well, what I like, he has a very quick release that I really like. He shows willingness to hang in the pocket. He'll step up. He has some athleticism, so he can move around a little bit, make some throws on the move. He really is fitting into that mold that Ryan Day really likes to recruit. Dylan Raiola is obviously similar. He's just kind of the turbocharged version. I would say out of his things that he really needs to work on, he's a little loose with the ball. He threw 9 interceptions last year. And he, because he's a gunslinger, he'll take some chances, and he has a very strong arm, so he has confidence in his arm. And that can lead him to get into some trouble. Also, when he's moving around a little bit, sometimes he can lose his base and deliver an errant ball, which you don't want. But overall, he's a very safe get for Ryan Day, I would say. Even if you dare say placeholder, he's a guy that looks capable of developing into somebody that could surprise some people for sure.
Yeah, I hate saying that word just because you never know how. I always say you never know how kids are going to react once they get to college. Anything can happen. Kids can transfer, kids can get injured. We saw Braxton Miller's shoulder fall out of the socket, and he was a Heisman front runner, and then also you're going to play JT Barrett and Cardale. So it's like you never know what can happen in football. The only reason I say that is because when you have the consensus number 1 overall player coming in, a lot of people are going to be excited, and the excitement level for Dylan Raiola once he committed was cataclysmic compared to what Brock Glenn dealt with. But hey, he might end up being the guy. I mean, you never know with college football and with the portal and everything that can go on. Like you never discount any of these guys because I think he's a talented guy. If Corey Dennis and Ryan Day want him, then it's good enough for me. They know more about quarterbacks than I'll ever know. So I'm excited to see what he can do. In closing, people that are watching this on YouTube, tell us a little bit about your photo. I have you've got your camera system coming. So next week when we are doing these, you will be on camera. But I had to find a good placeholder photo for you, and I found this one. You're at a whiteout. Tell me a bit about what it was like at Penn State, wearing your Ohio State gear in the middle of a whiteout.
Well, not sure I recommend it to everybody. I was a student there for a year, and I was one of those guys that would wear a scarlet and gray hoodie to class and get made fun of. So always good stuff. But the environment was absolutely electric. The stadium was shaking, and I've never been flipped off so many times in my life, especially after we won the game.
Yeah, it's a very nasty place to watch a game. Obviously, especially if you're wearing red, it's going to be miserable. I can't even imagine what it was like standing there for hours upon hours. But you're lucky because we were able to pull out a win. When I was there in 2005 and played, I hurt my knee, lost. It was terrible. 2007, we came back and beat them down pretty good. That was great. Went back out there in 2012 and beat them. But it's a nasty, crazy. It's the best environment in college football. It's so much better than the horseshoe. I wish that we had the same type of energy and environment, but we just don't. And I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's where the students were placed, or they pipe in noise or whatever it is, but it is just so incredibly loud there. And there's loud, and then there's this is like standing next to like a jet engine loud. It's like a different level of loud. And the shoe, I've never heard the shoe as loud as Penn State gets when they're fired up for us, but hopefully one day we can get on that level. So in closing, you got any thing in closing, close out this episode? Anything to look for this week, article wise or content wise from you?
I will have a few bold predictions for camp coming out, and we're also going to have an article on the position battles coming up.
Oh, I can't wait. That'll be fantastic. Well, Joe Draime, one of the fastest rising stars in this industry. Excited he's with Buckeye Scoop. He's been crushing it online. With that being said, thank you, my man. Appreciate you. The talent, I mean, we've got some really talented people on the site now on BuckeyeScoop.com. We have the most active message board in all of Ohio State fandom. So if you really want to know what's going on inside of training camp, now that training camp's here, if you really want to know what's going on inside, give us a look. BuckeyeScoop.com. Leave us a like on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, anywhere you see our stuff, especially on YouTube is huge for the algorithm. Additionally, if you are on Spreaker or Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star review. It really helps the Morning Scoop be found by more people. It gets promoted more. It really helps us. So appreciate you guys. Again, leave us a comment on who's your breakout star. Make your call right now. Can't wait to see who's right, who's wrong. See how it all shakes out. So appreciate you guys. Thank you so much, Buckeye Scoop family. Thank you, Buckeye Nation. You guys have a great rest of your day. Go Bucks.